Racing is something that conceals danger, but what if the cars that race are by themselves dangerous? The Porsche 917 is a series of one of the most daring race cars ever made. But there is one car that stands above all the others, the 917KH, a race car that's considered to be among the most dangerous ones ever made. In this video, we'll take a look at the legendary 91753 Kurzheck, the riveting story behind it, and the dangers it offered. So, without further ado, let's begin. Most auto enthusiasts often relate to Lotus as the car brand that has made its mission to make cars as lightweight as possible. Making cars lightweight often turns out to be a dangerous task, as it can result in compromising the durability and safety of the car. If you flip the pages of history, you'll get to see that Porsche's racing department found themselves trying to accomplish this same mission in the 60s and 70s. After Porsche won at the Le Mans outright with the 917 in 1970, the company built new versions of the same racer to try and defend its title. Well, one among them was chassis number 91753. Apart from the Martini livery and the vertical fins over the rear wheels, the car doesn't look very much different from the previous year's winner. If you examine the car, you'll notice that under the bodywork, the car sports a chassis built of magnesium, the metal that's notorious for being extremely flammable and impossible to extinguish. After the Le Mans, the brutal 24-hour race, Helmut Marko and Gijs van Lennep had completed 397 laps, a speed record that would last for another 39 years. They celebrated their victory alongside the 91753 Kurzheck, a car that's often considered to be one of the most dangerous race cars in history. Porsche had now tamed the race car that was considerably one hell of a vehicle 2 years earlier. Driving this beast at a high speed was a task feared to be accomplished by the finest of drivers. So, what tamed this beast? This was the result of aero tweaks, weight reductions, and increased engine power to 630 horsepower. Lennep said, "I was never afraid of any understeer or oversteer because it was so nicely balanced," he added, "and you could drive it on the throttle fantastically because it had a 100% locking limited slip differential." But the engineers of Porsche still had one improvement left. It was that the chassis 91753 had an ultra-lightweight magnesium frame. According to Porsche racing engineer Norbert Singer, the weight savings were important to the car. During that time, the 917 came with a weight of 44 to 66 pounds heavier than 1,764 pounds. 1,764 pounds was the minimum weight required in the 5.0-liter sports class in which the cars competed, which was mostly due to the heavy flat 12 engine out back. Singer also revealed that Porsche engineers simply decided not to tell drivers, Gijs van Lennep and Helmut Marko, what the chassis was made of. This was why Porsche experimented with magnesium chassis tubes instead of the standard aluminum. According to van Lennep, the first chassis that was made broke after a few hours of testing at Weissach, whereas the second chassis lasted for 10 or 12 hours. He said it was difficult welding at the joints, so they had put a sort of sleeve over it and welded on that. The third magnesium frame was ours, and it saved about 40 kilograms, making us the lightest car. The fact about magnesium is that it has one major flaw. Yes, the material is unimaginably unsafe. This means that it ignites very easily and burns at a temperature that's often over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Apart from this, the metal is extremely tough to extinguish. Even if you try to fight it off with nitrogen or carbon dioxide, you'll notice that it causes no impact. Pouring water over it can turn out to be a bad decision, as burning magnesium creates new flammable compounds that will intensify the fire. In 1968, Honda built a magnesium chassis Formula One car named the RA302. In the same year, John Surtees was asked to drive it, but he refused. So Honda went on to ask Joe Schlesser to pilot the car at the 1968 French Grand Prix. What happened there was tragic as Schlesser crashed on the second lap, and the car caught fire, leading to his death. Marco and Van Lennep had to ride for 24 hours in a race car that produced intense heat, which had the potential to ignite the chassis. The car was unsafe and was indeed life-threatening. Right after a few laps, their cockpit, magnesium chassis tubes, an oil radiator, and the 12-cylinder engine behind them became insanely hot. The car's engines could go up to 8,200 RPM. But the fact is that they exploded at 8,500 RPM. So, limiting it to 7,500 was indeed important. Not only was the magnesium unsafe, but it also presented other problems. When 91753 was sent for pre-race inspection, it weighed less than the required minimum. What the Porsche's mechanics did was they filled the 50-liter oil tank to the brim. In cases where the car was overweight, they would keep the tank empty. According to Singer, one of his colleagues decided to adopt magnesium for the engine cover hinges so that they could save weight over the conventional aluminum units. Well, the magnesium hinges failed in testing. This made the Porsche mechanics rush to a blacksmith in order to get new hinges that were made from steel. During the race, Ferrari was in the lead until Nino Vaccarella and Jose Juncadella lost their clutch. The 91753 at the time showed both mechanical sympathy and clockwork consistency. Marco and Van Lennep were busy babying the cooling fan. This was because if it broke all its locating bolts, it would fly off and could cause an engine fire. Van Lennep recalled, "So at every pit stop, a mechanic changed one bolt." He added, "That way, we didn't lose any time. And after 4 pit stops, we had all the new bolts." The other teams were busy attempting to stop the Martini juggernaut, and thus they pushed themselves into several high-profile retirements. This helped the 91753 car to seize the lead in the 13th hour, and with that, they disappeared into the distance. Or so they thought. With just about 5 hours to go, their brake discs started to crack. Van Lennep said, "That was the first time we had holes drilled in them, and they were cracking around the outside." He continued, "If we stopped to change them, we couldn't win. So we decided not to brake anymore, or to do less of it at least." At the flag, Porsche 917 would once again win the Le Mans, with second place going to Richard Atwood and Herbert Muller. After this, the 91753 was retired by Porsche and has never been fired up again, owing to the plain fear of what might happen with its fragile magnesium frame. The pair had set a Le Mans distance record that stood firm until 2010. Well, over the years, the cars of Le Mans have become a lot safer, and the racing teams have been much keen about the safety of their drivers. The Porsche 91753 is indeed a one-of-a-kind car that is infamous for its dangerous use of metals. So, what do you think about the Porsche 91753, and if you get a chance to drive it, would you dare to? Let us know in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that we can entertain you with more exciting videos from the automobile world.